We're going to look at Psalm 57 then, a record of David in the cave. And remember that the reason I'm using the Psalms is we're not just looking at the historical event. We're being allowed to see how David thinks and feels while he's living in a world full of trouble. So I've titled the sermon, it was in one of my books, so I can't claim originality. I titled the sermon this morning, Living in the Jungle. Living in the jungle. Doesn't it feel like that at times? In a world where men and women are at war with each other, man eats man. They've not quite become cannibals, but they've certainly gone down that road. Or as people frequently say, dog eat dog. And you must experience it at times, because the people who cause these things don't give in very easily. It's like living in the jungle. I read this, it'll maybe make you smile, but it helps to understand where I'm trying to come from. It says, a big mean lion met a monkey in the jungle. The lion pounced on the poor monkey and said, "Who is the king of the jungle?" The frightened monkey replied, "You are, O mighty lion." So the lion let him go. The next animal the lion met was a zebra. He pounced on it and roared, "Who is the king of the jungle?" "You are, O mighty lion." So the lion let him go. The lion next met an elephant and asked the same question. The elephant grabbed the lion, twirled him around, and threw him 50 feet. The lion picked himself up and huffed. Just because you don't know the answer, it's no reason to get rough. That's the crazy world we live in, isn't it? The crazy world we live in. And one of the things I've come to appreciate in going through these Psalms is we're given a very personal insight on David's crazy world. And if I'm right, I detect that there's a development of his understanding. You'll remember how he first of all ran away to Gath and was pretending to be mad. You remember how his life was threatened and they threw him out. And in those different Psalms, we've seen how God drew him out so that he could confess, it doesn't matter what men do to me, God is for me. So that he could confess that his confidence was because the angel of the Lord encamps all around those who fear him. If we go through this psalm with David, you'll find here that he has this incredible confidence in the face of difficulty, because he knows that God is for him and his strength. It breaks down into, well, in actual fact, I need to tell you there are two possible ways of breaking this psalm down. Verse 11, "Be exalted, O God, above the heavens," is the same as verse 5. So you can break it into two parts. But as I read it, I felt it would be better handled by breaking it into three parts. You'll notice the little word Selah in the right-hand side twice in the passage. You're not supposed to pronounce it. Selah means pause. It means take a moment to think. So what I want to do is to go through these three moments for you to think about and help us together to grow. So verses 1 through to 3, "Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me, for my soul trusts in you." Can you see how he's moved? "And in the shadow of your wings I will make my refuge until these calamities pass by. I will cry out to you, God Most High, to God who performs all things. For me, he shall send from heaven and save me. He reproaches the one who would swallow me up." Here you come face to face with the wonderful truth that prayer is not just talking into the air. Prayer is actually communicating with a personal God who intimately cares for us. A God who has revealed himself as the foundation of all hope. If you notice the second part of verse 2, it's a tremendous challenge to God who performs all things, but that's not where it finishes. Do you notice the personal note for me? Can you get your head round the fact that there is one supreme, eternal God existing outside of time who created everything, and yet he looks after us as individuals? It's astounding. Remember in one of the previous Psalms, David talked about God collecting his tears in a bottle, recording his difficulties in a book. And I believe even as David said those things, he's come to understand it. He's had to escape and run to a cave. And in that cave, he confesses that his hope is not in the cave. It's not the cave that's keeping him secure. It's God. One of my books commented on the end of verse 1, and in the shadow of your wings, I will make my refuge until these calamities pass away. And the man who was writing suggested you could just imagine in a cave with a sloping roof towards the back. It would be like the shape of a bird's wing. But David is specifically saying, it's not the cave that makes me secure. It's the fact that there is a personal God. And I want to put it to you that this is the distinguishing mark of a child of God. And this is where our troubles are supposed to bring us. Trouble is never nice, but you won't escape it in this world. Trouble can have a very positive effect when it brings you to shelter under God's wing. So in the midst of his trouble, his eyes are firmly set on his Lord. And he confessed absolutely his confidence that God will deliver him. Verse 3, he shall send from heaven and save me. Isn't it beautiful how personal it is? Not him, not her. You may think they deserve it more than you or need it more than you, but here's David being brought through his troubles to the point of talking about the God who will save me, and he reproaches the one who would swallow me up. Justice will be seen to be done. What a great encouragement there is then, when you can understand the nature of God's care, his love, and so that it brings you through trouble. Again, I would underline, there is no suggestion in the Bible that anyone will ever live without trouble in their life. Even the most rich and famous must face the terror of death itself, or illness, or family problems. Wherever you turn, the words of Job ring out, don't they? Man was born for trouble, even as the spark flies upward. In days of central heating, you might need reminding of the spark flying upward, but an open fire with a bit of a breeze and the sparks fly upward. They don't do anything else, do they? Let's understand the nature of God's care and promises. It keeps on coming out in the Psalms. And it's why Christians love the Psalms so much, why we read them so regularly and seek help from them. Psalm 138, verse 8, the Lord will perfect that which concerns me. What a statement of confidence. Remember, this is not a man who's been brought up in a comfortable situation with servants and whatever else. This is a man who has been dragged out of his comfort zone. And his life is threatened. The man he thought he was serving has now given orders for him to be killed. Psalm 63, because you have been my help. Therefore, in the shadow of your wings, I will rejoice. Or another psalm that I find more and more people love, Psalm 121, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? That question is absolutely essential. It's written at a time when the pilgrims are going to Jerusalem and the temple sits high and elevated. and they can see the temple covered in gold and glistening, a beautiful place. Many people in our own land look at cathedrals and church buildings like that, don't they? And they think that because they get the church building or they get near it, they'll be okay. David corrects that kind of thinking. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Every beautiful piece of stone or precious stone, God made it. And so David sets before us this challenge to all of us to be men and women of prayers, not to wait until we are in a desperate state as he did earlier, but wherever we find ourselves, not to be depending on where we are or who is with us or what we know or what we do or don't have in the bank, how well educated we are. All these things are crutches that people use and cling to. No, David instructs us that our sure hope and confidence comes from God himself. The picture of God having wings, of course, is a metaphor, but it's one that's used regularly in the scriptures. There is a passage in the beginning in the Bible, in the Pentateuch, where it talks about God as being like a strong eagle who will lift them up and carry them through their troubles. There's a picture of the Ark of the Covenant with the two cherubims with their wings covering the Ark, the place where sin's forgiven. But what struck me here was, if you can use your imagination, sanctified, of course, and get yourself under the wings of a mother hen. My grandma used to live in a small holding and there was chickens and hens everywhere. I can just see them. The chicken feels there's danger, or the hen feels there's danger for the chicken, and they go under her wings. And then she will be ready to give her life for the protection. And while they're in there, they will feel the warmth of its presence, and they will be able to hear the heartbeat. That's the picture I get in my mind as I look here. God is encouraging us to come to him for safety, to feel the warmth of his love, and to understand that his heartbeat is for our deliverance. Oh, my dear friends, look at these words. They're beautiful. Mr. Spurgeon writes about them. What a mixture of feebleness and strength there is in this first verse. The feebleness so beautified by being clothed with the strength of faith. What a turning away from man, and what a turning wholly unto the Lord. And in coming to the Lord, what humility, and what pleading for mercy, and for mercy only. And what joyous confidence, and what sweet rest in God. If I cannot see the brightness of your faith, of your face, the shadow of your wings will be enough for me. Only let me get near to you. Only permit me humbly to trust you, and it will be enough for me until these calamities pass. And this is the great truth of the scripture, that the eternal, only wise God is a God of grace, mercy, and love. And no matter how foolish and sinful you might have been, he invites all of us to come and plead for mercy, to plead for that gracious dealing of God which covers over our sin and brings to us confidence. Notice, my soul trusts in you. And when your soul trusts in God, when the inner you overcomes your outer circumstances, then there is indeed a power to survive which is incredible. And people like David shows us over and over and over. The Most High God is how he's described in verse 2. It's a phrase which seeks to direct our mind to realizing that God is the absolute supreme being. Satan runs about telling people lies that he's in charge. He's not. He's already doomed and will be destroyed. God is God Most High. In another psalm, David said, "For the Lord Most High is awesome. He is a great king over all the earth." And this is the challenge of the Bible to your mind and mine. This is the challenge which brings us face to face with Jesus Christ and to ask you and me to recognize him as God Most High. When he comes to the Gadarene maniac in Luke chapter 8, the maniac falls at his feet. It says, when he saw Jesus, he cried out, fell down before him, and with a loud voice said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" Son of the Most High God. And here we have the profound miracle of how God delivers. He doesn't just tinker with the affairs of history. He entered into time. He gave himself to the cruel cross at Calvary. He experienced the outpouring of the wickedness of men to a degree which leaves us all aghast. And then he endured the wrath of God, that you and I might have wings to shelter under, that you and I might find a place where we're safe from this crazy world. Another one of my books says, in the earlier Psalms, David was hiding from his enemies in Gath or in the wilderness of the Ziphites. Here, he is hiding in God, which is what the cave symbolizes. Lovely hymn, isn't there? Hiding in you, hiding in thee. I'm hiding in thee. This is the Christian's security. This is our confidence. God himself, whether we experience immediate deliverance or not. Again, read the book. You see, David has brought himself into God's presence, but he's still got problems. God doesn't click his fingers and take them away. And that's because while we will never like it, I hope you never like trouble, you do have to realize that hard things develop and train us. Do you remember when you went to school in primary, and then before you know what's what, they want you to read books? And then just after that, they want you to do sums, arithmetic for the educated. Why on earth did they do that? Why did they want me to understand that when 2 plus 3 are put together, I've got 5? And what later on was all that algebra about? X plus Y equals Z. But you faced the problems, you came through them. And because you came through them, you were better equipped to face the future. It's a poor analogy, but it's as close as I can get to at this point, you see, to help me understand that trouble can do us good. Again, I underlined, you don't have to enjoy the trouble, but you have to recognize that it can make you better, and you need to be aware of it making you bitter. That's the test. Israel were brought out of Egypt. And before they were there 5 minutes, they were complaining and wanted to go back. And they became bitter. And for that reason, they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. God was dealing with the bitterness because he knew that if they would trust him, they would be strengthened for what was coming next. And yet we all have the caves that we hide in, don't we? We all have those places where we can go and just be us. and we can grind our teeth and grumble. Oh, dear friends, learn from David. I think that's the reason for the Salah at the edge of the verse. Don't just move on to the next bit. Stop and think about this. And it challenges me then, is that my experience? C.S. Lewis wrote many books, and he wrote a book called The Problem of Pain. And in The Problem of Pain, he made a statement which many have looked at and been caused to think deeply. He says, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks to us in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a dead world. God's megaphone will be functioning in your life. Each of us as individuals with different needs, different challenges, different joys, different sorrows. And the real test is, you see, where do you go when you know you can't handle this on your own? And that you don't deserve to be delivered from it. You go to God, cry for mercy. You go to God and hide yourself as close to him as you can. Those lovely words of Jesus fit in here, don't they? Come unto me, all you who labor and are heavy laden. Do you ever stop and just think about what it means to labor and be heavy laden? Doesn't just mean that you're out there doing hard labor somewhere. Laboring and being heavy laden, it takes place inside us. Come unto me, and I will give you rest. Hiding in you. I'm hiding in you. Thou blessed rock of ages. I'm hiding. Oh, that we would learn to hide. And how the unbeliever then is in desperate trouble. They've nowhere to hide. They've got to be tough and fierce to the end of their days. Woe betide you if you get in their way. They may do it with a smile, but they'll stamp all over you if they can. I read an article this week which fascinated me. Apparently, as you get old, the first thing to go is the power in your legs. You can't climb the stairs like you once did. You can't walk as far as you once did. And it's a really miserable concept to think about, but that's all the unbeliever has. For one day, those legs will stop moving, and they'll enter into the presence of God as their judge, not their shelter. Let me move on through the psalm, because time and tide wait for no man. The second thing I want to show you here is David's confidence. Verse 3 has Selah before the end of it. So I begin with, God shall send forth his mercy and his truth. That's confidence, isn't it? Listen how he goes on. My soul is among lions. That's me as a person. I can hear them. I can smell the breath. Trouble can be such a terror. Peter perhaps picks this up. The devil goes about like a roaring lion. And there are times in life when you are absolutely cornered at your wit's end and you don't know where to go. David will teach us. I lie among the sons of men who are set on fire. Let the picture spark a light in your life. Those people living in Los Angeles, California, at the beginning of this year, saw everything they own go up in smoke, quite literally. And sometimes it can be like that in our experience. But he's not finished. Whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue a sharp sword. They're dangerous. They're out to get me. Saul's command to kill him is still active and alive. That's why I'm in the cave. But you have to notice then verse 5. If I got into a situation like David, it would be, oh dear, poor me. How is this ever going to do me any good? What hope is there for tomorrow? And Satan will just keep on pouring fuel into that. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above all the earth. They have prepared a net for my steps. My soul is bowed down. They have dug a pit before me. Can you see how he's just piling up the problems? But do you notice how that verse 6 ends? They have dug a pit before me, into the midst of which they themselves have fallen. Remember how it begins at the end of verse 3? God shall, not might, God shall send forth his mercy and his truth. Though danger is real, the believer, sheltering under the wing of God, close to the heart of God by grace, has this incredible strength that comes from knowing that God is for me and it doesn't matter who's against me. Listen to David, learn from David. He's not just saying these words so that you can read them 3,000 years later. He's writing these words by the inspiration of the Spirit so that they would bring help and encouragement to your life. This psalm is forged on the anvil of danger. It's not just a jamming session of musicians who are looking for words to put to the music they've dreamt up. It's real, it's personal, and it's something which is designed to be an encouragement to you and me in a world where trouble never seems to take a day off. People give you grief. The politicians, if I'm right, are going to be taking money out of people's pocket next month. What on earth is going to happen in Ukraine? Mr. Putin digs his heels in and seeks to set the parameters for peace. Is there any way of escaping all of these troubles? And we can bring them right down to our own personal health needs, wealth needs, family needs. There just never seems to be an end of it. And you can imagine then why it would be very easy to sink under it. David is sheltering in God. Do you notice at the end of verse 3 again? God shall send. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son. For David, it would be 1,000 years later, but there's no doubt at all that from what he knew from Moses, etc., he was looking forward to Christ's coming. That these writings are not only about David, because Jesus teased out the meaning to the disciples on the road to Emmaus. All these passages are talking about Jesus. He shall send forth his mercy and truth. Do you know John's Gospel? Do you know how it describes Jesus? As being full of mercy and truth. John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Okay, we know who the Word is. Why are you telling us, verse 14? And the Word, that one who's God, became flesh and dwelt among us. And then verse 18, and we beheld his glory, full of grace and truth. Oh, dear friends, troubles are real, but it's also true that there is one in the heavens who has promised to deliver everybody who ever trusts in him, and that he came here and experienced trouble to a degree that you and I would hate to imagine. And he came here willingly and deliberately. No man takes my life from me. I lay it down of myself. That's what he said. I think it's John chapter 10. He knew that he had an appointment at Calvary. And so over and over we're told he set his face steadfast toward Jerusalem. What's he doing? He's coming to deliver David and to deliver every individual like David ever since by overcoming the wickedness of men and suffering the punishment that was due for sin, so that God might be just, Romans chapter 3, and the justifier. You see, God is holy. He can't just pretend you've not done anything wrong. He can't just say, oh, let's suppose this never happened. He's holy. He can't bend the rules for himself, or he has to stop being God. So how does he deliver the likes of you and me? By coming here and paying the penalty himself for your sin and for mine, that he might be just, that his character would be preserved impeccably true, and the justifier, and the one who declares men and women not guilty through Jesus Christ. David, you've taken me down this road this morning, and what a joy and delight it is. My soul might well be among lions. I might lie among the sons of men who are set on fire. I might be experiencing spears and arrows and sharp swords, but be exalted, O God. This is incredible. This is absolutely fabulously true. David has much to teach us here. The Lord Jesus bore our penalty. He felt the pain. You remember those words? Now my soul is troubled, and what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. But for this purpose I came to this hour. Father, glorify your name. Or in the garden, if it's possible, let this cup pass, but not my will, but your will be done. Jesus knew what he was doing. David anticipates it, and he breaks out in such praise. Let your glory be above all the earth. And truly, that's exactly where it is at this present time. Because though men would destroy us, though women would crush us, dig pits for us to fall in, what's actually going to happen is they're going to fall in themselves. Can I bring that to your attention? Because when you're able to hide under his wing, you are entitled to have a confidence that is greater than your circumstances. It's almost a form of madness because it's contrary to what's going on. The Apostle Paul at one time recognized that people would think he was mad. 2 Corinthians 5:13, if you want to look it up. D.L. Moody wrote, I wish we had many more who were bitten with the same kind of madness. As someone has said, if we are mad, we have a good keeper on the way and a good asylum at the end of the road. There's a madness about trusting God. There's a madness. And it's only exceeded by the madness of the unbeliever who can listen to, read these things and think about them and then do nothing at all about them. In 1925, a man called Floyd Collins climbed into a sand cave in search of a fortune. His light went out, and then crawling through the darkness, we are told, his foot hit a 7-ton boulder. It fell on his leg, trapping him in the coffin-like narrowness of a dark subterranean straitjacket. For days, Collins was trapped 125 feet below ground in an ice-cold space 8 inches high and 12 feet long. In the meantime, his plight became a national sensation. As the rescue attempt wore on, some 50,000 tourists bought hot dogs, balloons, and soft drinks from vendors at the cave in Kentucky. But in the end, Floyd Collins died alone in the icy darkness, crying out deliriously, "Get me out! Why don't you take me out?" Kiss me goodbye, I'm going. Unbeliever, isn't it? They may be surrounded by lots of people having parties, but their own terror is real, and it's nothing compared to the terror which waits for them. Oh, that you would hear Jesus crying to you, come to me, all you who labor and heavy laden. And join then with David. How this psalm finishes is beautiful. My heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. He's previously spoken about his soul, his inner man. And there's no more significant part of an inner man than their heart. My heart is steadfast, O God. My heart is steadfast. I will sing and give praise. Can you see the power of knowing that the living God is your God, your shelter, your Savior, and the transforming effect of that potentially on your life? Over and over in the Psalms, we're encouraged to use our mouth and our lips to sing God's praise. And it's not just for other people to hear, it's good for us. My wife gave me a telling off this morning because I'm always turning music on or something, and she likes silence. You don't seem to be able to suffer silence. She's right. But you know, there's something powerful in listening to good music, even good secular music, but most especially good Christian music. And with modern technology, you don't even have to run away and find an album to put on or something to plug in. We have Alexa, and I'm not advertising, I'm not on commission. But if I get the words of a song in my mind, I just tell Alexa to sing it. And it's amazing the music that thing knows. And it lifts your spirit. Oh, dear friends, as we get to the end of this psalm, learn from David. Time to wake up. That's verse 8, isn't it? But to wake up by talking to yourself. Again, it's one of the crazy things in the psalm. The psalmist is always talking to himself, reminding himself, life is busy. Life is full of challenges, and it's easy to forget. So read again, awake, my glory, awake, lute and harp. I will awaken the dawn. He wants the music to be playing, and he wants it to be playing loud. I had that problem as a teenager, where I lived in the south of Edinburgh in a little town called Loanhead. I really found some music I loved. And I used to open the windows of a house and turn up the volume. I wanted everybody to enjoy it. Neighbours didn't think much of it, and I soon got told off. But you know what? That's what David's doing here, isn't it? This is so incredibly good. I will praise you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing to you among the nations. Why is he so excited? What is it that's cut the normal chords of what's acceptable and what's polite? It's right there in front of you. In verse 10, for your mercy reaches unto the heavens. In Jewish thinking, there were 3 levels of heavens. And the word here is the heaven of heavens, the ultimate outer limits. That's how much mercy there is from God for people like you and me. And your truth unto the clouds, that's a bit closer, isn't it? This is what is burning in David's soul. It's not just for private consumption. It's not just so that David can feel better. It's for the nations and for the peoples. Those are 2 interesting phrases, because that means the Gentiles and the rest of the world. That means you. The Jews were very introverted. They only really concerned themselves with themselves. And over in the Bible, you get these little windows which say, wait a minute, there's more. There's going to be a multitude which no man can number, standing in the presence of God. How far do you have to go before there's a number that nobody can count? Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above all the earth. God's mercy and truth stand fixed and firm, no matter what seems to be going wrong. Remember, Jesus says that neither jot nor tittle of his word or the law would be destroyed, that they were permanent. Remember Jesus on that cross as the people scoffed at him. You said that God would deliver you. Where's your God now? Jesus knew exactly where his God was. Because when sin separated him for 3 hours, my God, why have you forsaken me? We know why. Because you're a sinner, and I'm a sinner. And left to ourselves, we deserve whatever the wicked of this world might cast upon us, but we're not lost sinners. We're God's people by grace through faith because of God's mercy. And our hope is not based just on this world. Our hope is fixed, sure, steadfast. It's here. My heart is steadfast. Are you fixed on Christ, the rock? So many people think this world is all there is. You heard on the news, I think it's just in the last 10 days, isn't it? About the death of Gene Hackman. Found dead in his very expensive ranch with his wife lying dead in another room. Famous, so famous that the whole world has to know that he's died. What good did it do him? How much of it was he able to take with him into the presence of God? Riches and wealth are only useful if you use them to lay up for yourself treasure in heaven. As an end in themselves, you have to leave them all behind. And it may be in the most miserable of circumstances. Oh, dear friends, we're living in a jungle where there are lions and tigers and bears and whoever else you want to add to that dangerous life, those little snakes in the grass. How am I ever going to survive? There's an author I read quite regularly called Max Lucado. He annoys me. His ability to explain things is one I would love to have, and I know I don't have. So let me read, just to conclude, a few words from Max Lucado. It's a book called Traveling Light. We've imagined the emotions of being lost, he writes. You think we can do the same with being rescued? What would it take to restore your hope? What would you need to re-energize your journey? Though the answers are abundant, 3 quickly come to mind. The first would be a person. Not just any person. You don't need someone equally confused. You need someone who knows the way out. And from him, you need some vision. You need someone to lift your spirits. You need someone to look you in the face and say, this isn't the end. Don't give up. There is a better place for you, and I'll lead you there. And perhaps most important, you need direction. If you have only a person, but no renewed vision, all you have is company. If you have a vision, but no direction, you have a dreamer for company. But if you have a person with direction who can take you from this place to the right place, then you have one who can restore your hope. Or to use David's words, he says, who restores my soul. Jesus is that one. Rest in him and rejoice in his loving kindness. Amen.